Hey, yo. So I'm going to do this fairly quick today. So I'm getting this done in 15 minutes or less. So this would not be a long live. I'm going to give maybe about a minute for people to jump on. And if you don't catch it live, then catch the recording. And then just reply down at the bottom. Just hit replay just to let me know when it was actually viewed. But I hope everyone is doing well today. And plus, I need to go ahead and get this live done so I can get on out here and get my 4-mile walk in. Before I do that, let me go ahead and sort of power up with my Nautica Sea Moss. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Happy Sunday, Momo, Miss Momo. How you doing? Thank you for joining. Getting this sea moss down before I do this live, and then when I finish this live, I'm going to get on out here and get these miles done. Of course, getting prepared for this Believe in More challenge that is starting tomorrow, so I'm super excited about that. Super excited. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So happy Sunday. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Now here in North Carolina, I think it hit close to 70 degrees today. No cloud in the sky, blue skies, beautiful sunshine. Just Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I agree. I'm hooked on it now, Momo. I am hooked on it now. I'm like, wow. Did it have to do me like that? But I love it. I absolutely love it. I love this sea moss. But what I want to do is actually go into step 2, piggybacking off of what I had discussed on the previous video. As far as making these steps to transformation, is actually 5 steps. We're going to deal with number 2 today. But in the first step, I was talking about having a C moment, which is SEE, significant emotional event. So in other words, there is an emotional trigger or an emotional drive that should put you in a position to actually take action. Because what's the purpose in having that emotion and having all of this built up inside and you do not do anything positive with it? Because there's one thing to actually have an emotional event, but then you internalize it and it never comes out into something that's positive. It actually is used as something that's negative, and then you start talking negative to yourself, and that's not what we're doing. No, we're talking about making a transformation. So we're going to take that significant emotional event, and then we're going to go into action. So I'm going to talk about me taking, action after several significant emotional events that I had personally, one of which I had described in the previous video about being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I needed to have MRIs done. And the bad part is that where I was in the VA, the location where I was, they did not have an MRI machine that was big enough nor equipped enough or built better enough, I guess, sturdy enough to be able to sustain anyone who had weighed over 300 pounds. And that was said out loud. They weren't discreet with it, none whatsoever. This was in front of, quite a few people. And that did something to me. But it was actually a catalyst to help set the stage for me to actually make some changes. Also, I had issues with the mirror. I literally had a love-hate relationship with the mirror. More hate than love. Because I just got to a place where I did not like what I see. And even more so, I didn't like what I felt. So those are just a couple of instances where I had constantly had these significant emotional events, and it drove me to actually take action. So in my response to that is that you got to get started somewhere. Some people do not, they do not have, how can I put it, the mind to actually go to the gym, because they think that maybe somebody is watching them, or they're in the midst of other people. But what they don't realize is that there's plenty of other people in that gym that are going through the same struggle as they are. So it's a method to the madness. But for me personally, I just started walking, and the condition that I was in at that particular time, I used to walk with a pretty heavy limp. Reason being because I had lost a pretty good amount of mobility of my left side. Just going through the process of multiple sclerosis. That's just what it was doing at that particular time. So I started taking these steps, literally, where I just started walking. And at that particular time, I was living in an apartment complex, and so quite a few people knew me. They knew of my situation. They kind of knew my story. So when they started seeing me walk around in the neighborhood, you know, some folks started taking notice. And what wound up happening is that I started doing this on a daily basis. I didn't care if it was raining, if it was snowing. Now when I started walking, it was during the summertime. So man, it would really be hot out there. So I would wait until the evening, but I don't care if it was raining. As long as it wasn't severe thunderstorming, I was out there getting it done, making it happen, because what I was after was the end result. What I was after was a vision that I had in my mind. And so I'm going to get to how we can actually use the vision that we should have of ourselves after we complete our goal. So when I'm talking about taking action, what I'm doing is actually speaking about making a decision to take very, very targeted action. In other words, not just take any old action like, well, I guess I'll do something. No, you have to be very intentional about what you're doing. And in order for you to be very intentional about what you're doing, you have got to have a vision in your mind as to where you're trying to go. By that, I mean this. Our brains are a wonderful supercomputer. And our brains literally are operated and motivated by pictures. That's why marketing companies have, they have certain ways that they market to us, because not only do we hear, but more significantly, we see. Because what we see is an imprint in the mind. And whether it's negative or whether it's positive. And when that message is repeated long enough, whether it's the truth or not, your brain has a tendency to believe it. Well, in my particular case, I'm prior military. And the best shape that I was ever in my life was when I came out of boot camp, and I kept that shape. I stayed in shape a good 2 years after I came out of boot camp. And so I have these older pictures where I can literally go back and see, I remember that dude. And I remember how I felt being that guy, because I was in shape. I was feeling good. I felt almost invincible. And you know how it is when you're young like that. But I go back and I think about how I felt physically, and there were no health issues at that particular time. So I always kept that in mind. That's why everything that I do is very intentional. That's why even at the place where I've lost 140 pounds now, I know that I'm not done. The mission is not complete. So I had to keep on going, because I have not yet attained that guy that was in the pictures right after boot camp that many years ago. So I'm not there yet, but it's still pushing me. It's still getting me to that place. And what's going to motivate me once I get there is wanting to stay. But you have to be very, very intentional about it. And not only do you have to be intentional about it, but you're going to have to stay passionate about what you do. And this is why it is very, very important that once you get past yourself, this is very, very important, because somewhere along your journey, somewhere along your way, you're going to have to recognize, there's other people watching me. So let me go back to when I started walking at the apartment complex. And people, you know, they knew of me. And they sort of knew of my story. They knew about me having MS. And after about 2.5, 3 weeks, and notice how I said this, about after 2.5 or 3 weeks of folks constantly seeing me day after day after day out there walking, guess what happened? Other folks started getting out and walking as well. So in other words, and I want to encourage you, those that are not only starting this transformation contest, this challenge tomorrow, but just in general, because this is your life. Just understand that just because someone might not be commenting on your post right now or saying anything or even hit like or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Trust and believe there are people that are watching you that will not let you know that they're watching you until they're ready to let you know. I'm experiencing this right now. There are people that are jumping in my inbox, whether it be here on Facebook or whether it be on Instagram. They've never liked anything that I posted. They never commented, none of that. But what they say is, well, Bobby, I've been watching you for over a year now, and I'm ready. So that's why I had to continuously say that this is not about us. It benefits us, but ultimately it's not about us. It's about those that we affect, whether we see them or not. Because this thing is just so much bigger than us. So we have to get out of our own way. So going back to being intentional as far as our actions are concerned, you also had to deal with the issue, and this is very real because I've struggled with this in the past. We'll start out real good, and then we'll have some success, but then we start reverting back to some of these old habits that got us in trouble in the first place. Well, sometimes those old habits are literally tied to other issues that maybe perhaps we need to deal with from our past. That's an entirely different conversation, a different video. But nevertheless, we still got to get past that, and we still got to press forward in doing the new thing that we do. So what I want to encourage you to do is keep pressing on and continuing to be the new you long enough to outlast the old you. Let me repeat that again. Continue to be and do the new you long enough to outlast the old you, because that's how you're going to win. This is a constant lesson in persistence and consistency. And so I'm going to end right here. Consistency is key. And in order for you to be consistent, you got to be submitted. No, let me go back. In order for you to actually be consistent, you've got to be committed. Yeah, you got to be committed. Committed to what? Committed to yourself. And in order for you to be committed, you're going to have to be submitted. Submitted to what? Submitted to the process. So let me repeat that. You have got to be consistent. And in order for you to be consistent, you have got to be committed. And in order for you to be committed, you're going to have to be submitted to the process. In other words, you're going to have to yield to everything that is inconvenient to get you to where you need to go. So this is one of my favorite sayings. Lisa Nichols, when I first heard her say it, it stuck with me. It is burned in my soul. That convenience and conviction never live on the same block. So you might as well go ahead and just prepare yourself and know that there are just going to be some times that you just ain't going to feel like it. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you feel like it, because, you know, action literally helps create the emotion to bring you back to a place where you know that once you complete that task, it makes you feel a certain way. So you have to be committed to this action, committed to the whole process in order to understand and feel this thing. Because once you do your workouts and once you start eating right, and then it makes a transition. It makes the transition from, man, I got to do this, to, man, I got to do this, because if I don't do this today, I'm not going to feel myself. I'm not going to feel right, because you've created a habit. It's like a new pathway made in your brain. Let me give you an example, then I go. Those that know me know that I love the sport of bowling. Bowling has done something for me in my life that, man, I almost can't describe it. But let me give you a quick history lesson as far as me actually, bowling, how that started. I got tired of going to the gym. I got tired of going on that treadmill. And that treadmill said, Bobby, you don't walk 3 miles a day. But I look around and I ain't went nowhere. It's just funny how my brain works. Now, for a lot of people, that works for them. And look, keep doing you. But it just started not doing anything for me. I said, well, man, I got to do something else. And so I started thinking. And I remember, man, my dad was an excellent bowler at one time. So I said, well, let me just go over here to the bowling alley and let me just see how that feels. Now, still at that particular time, I had somewhat of a limp, and I still did not have full use as far as my left side is concerned. So what I wound up doing is actually going to the bowling alley that day, and I fooled around and caught that bug. And what wound up happening, especially for the first year, I literally logged this. So I hope somebody catch the lesson in this, because I like numbers, and I'll write stuff down. And what I ended up doing from June of that year, it was 4 years ago, so June of 2016 to June of 2017, I had literally, and y'all got to understand this, I was so committed to this process because of what it was doing for me. I literally logged over 1,500 hours. Actually 1,500 games, and I think close to like 1,000 hours of me just bowling. That means that I would go in there in the morning sometimes and not leave until the evening. I had become so addicted to it. You want to know why? Because there were certain actions that I needed to take in order for me to actually roll that ball correctly. And what wound up happening is that I started getting the balance back on my left side. And I started getting functionality back on my left side that I had not had for quite some time. Why? Because the repeated actions, time and time and time and time again, created a new pathway in my brain. Because with multiple sclerosis, we're either going to have lesions on our brain or on our spinal cord. In my particular case, I have lesions on the brain. So there was new pathways that needed to be created in order for me to do the things that I was once doing, what's almost basically took for granted. Just walking normal, being able to actually jog a little bit, or just being able to function a certain way without having to worry about dragging a certain part of my body. And that's how it was at one time. So I share that with you to say this, is that in order to win at this thing, you're going to have to be willing to create the habit long enough to create a change, not only in your brain, but also in your spirit. So I want to encourage you that yes, it's going to be difficult sometimes. And sometimes you're not going to feel like it. But this is way beyond your feelings. I heard a great man say one time that behind your feelings is absolutely nothing. But behind every principle, there's a promise. And every day that I get out here and I do what I do, I hold on and grab and literally clench the promise. And I had to get past how I feel sometimes. Today, I ain't necessarily feeling going out here and getting these miles done, but you can best believe Bobby is going to get it done. Why? Because I done had a glimpse of the promise. That glimpse of the promise, that image in my brain ain't going nowhere. I'm all in. So whatever that promise looks like to you, Go get that. Hang on to it. Clench yourself into that thing and don't let go, because that's what's going to keep you in the game. And here's what's guaranteed. You're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And how in the world can you win if you don't never get in the game? You can do this. I can guarantee you can. It's a process. And is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Absolutely yes. So look, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I went longer than what I had planned on doing today, but you know what? When the spirit flow, and I just got to let it do what it do. So that's what it is. So look, this is Bobby P. My time is up. I thank you for yours. And I want to leave you with one last thing. I love each and every one of you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Till next time, be blessed.